now need to go to your board because I need to know what you think.
Look, it's a really interesting thing, Mark, and it's changed quite a bit for some of the reasons we've already discussed. But we look at the monetary policy checklist. So GDP was 0.2 in the March quarter. The partial indicators for the June quarter suggest we're going to have another soft result. We're going to have another pretty weak result. So that's neutral. So, the economy's doing okay. On GDP alone, you don't need to hike anymore. You don't need to cut yet either, so it's okay. Inflation, I'm moving for the first time since we've had our checklist here to tightening to neutral, and that's because of the 0.8% for the quarterly. And in fact, the monthly inflation numbers, because the ABS have put out an experimental monthly consumer price index, in annual terms, it's 5.4. So it's leading the quarterly numbers lower. So again, you're not quite ready to declare victory against inflation, but gee, it's looking encouraging for all the reasons we mentioned. The labour market, well, I'm going to leave that in the tightening column. 3.5% unemployment rate, which, first of all, it's good news, but there is a slight risk that wages will be a problem. At the moment, I'm going to keep them in the neutral to tightening. They're not quite yet a problem, but there's still anecdotes of labour shortages, skill shortages. I'm going to have to pay more for my staff, this sort of thing coming through from a lot of the corporate world. So that's sort of more neutral to tightening. Now, international economy, I'm going to whack that over towards neutral to easing. It's slowing down. We mentioned that already. China's weakening. The US, even though growth's still happening, it's slower than it was. Europe's in trouble. Germany's actually in a recession. So we've got the big
New Zealand's in a recession.
Yeah, so we've got the economy, enough economies, looking pretty crook. House prices, well,
it's a bit weird, isn't it?
It's a very weird thing, Mark. I'm going to put that in neutral because we had the peak to trough decline to the early part of 2023, about 9-10%. Since February, prices, according to CoreLogic, are up about 4.5%. Sydney's up about 7%. Like supply and demand, we've discussed this in earlier discussions, but that immigration inflow is huge. We're not building enough properties. We've got a shortage and people are buying them, prices are going up. And that's a pretty broadly based thing. It's across most capital cities too. So house prices, you're not going to hike because house prices are edging up, but you're not going to cut either because they're not destroying wealth and that sort of discussion. Retail sales, grim. They're easing. We consumers, we're not silly. We're confronting cost of living pressures. The mortgage servicing costs, again, they've gone up for most people on a sort of a new average mortgage. They're paying $1,000 a month, if not more, if not quite a bit more in the big cities with big mortgages per month because of interest rates going up. That's $1,000 plus that they're not spending elsewhere.
That's $12,000 a year, which is
it's a lot of money.
About $16,000 extra.
Correct. And so therefore retail sales have been trending down and down and down. And in fact, they're really weak. So the retailers are under a fair bit of pressure right now. So, and that actually, and don't forget that retail spending or consumer spending more broadly is over half of GDP. So we were talking about risk of recession or will GDP be negative or just small positive. If you've got consumers staying at home, not going out for dinner as much, cooking at home rather than eating out, that's fine. But it actually, if you're the restaurant owner, you're in trouble because no one's going there anymore because it's too expensive. Now, consumer sentiment, miserable again. We consumers, we're seeing cost of living rate hikes. That's a similar thing to the retail sales. Building approvals, well, we had a bit of a jump last month. It was one development in New South Wales. They are still really weak. If I was to sort of think about what's going to get a property developer to build, interest rates are a big issue. In fact, we should be cutting rates to encourage more construction. I know it doesn't work quite that simply, but that's the case. Business investment, that's a decent thing. That's going well. We need it. It adds to our productivity. Again, productivity has been one of these bugbears for the economy for, 10 years now, or maybe even longer. Australians, we sort of do okay, but our productivity is not great. We need more CapEx, more business investment. Business confidence, it's okay. Commodity prices, well, I said they were falling before. They've come back up a bit. I'm going to put that in neutral, because the price of oil's come up a bit. Copper, lumber, wheat, the Ukraine-Russia thing, so it doesn't get quite the headlines that it used to, but there are consequences for a lot of food, for vegetable oils and things. So there's, the wheat, really important parts of, the food production process that are impacting. Stock market's edged up. I'm going to stick that in neutral. It doesn't really have a big impact. And current rates, I'm moving to slightly easy because the 4.1% cash rate is very tight. We've had 400 points of rate hikes in about 15 months. We don't need to cut them, but I don't think we need to hike them.